Welcome back, brothers and sisters. We hope you had an amazing Labor Day. It was a long weekend, and you are probably rested for this content right here. Thank you for stopping by the Second Legacy. And today we are going to dive into something that could be, as I mentioned on my channel, the silver bullet to all the AR bans and the MAG bans. We've got NFA, we've got taxation, we have Illinois, we got a lot of stuff we're going to break down. But before we get into all that, we got to do our regular. Tim, how are you? That's paramount on these daily episodes. How are you? That's the tone, man.
Absolutely awful. Absolutely awful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know how to recover from that.
Yeah, you know what's crazy is we just came through the long weekend, which is typically a good thing for most people, though.
Yeah.
But it's also the last weekend of summer, really. You know, and it was so nice and warm.
That's true.
And then we got to look forward to 6 months of ice. So anyway,
well, I mean, like not to put a wet blanket on the episode, but I don't. Florida's looking great for the summer. In fact, I've heard Florida's nicer in summer.
Yeah.
In winter,
winter,
not
isn't
summer,
it? Yeah.
winter. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
it's gotta be your
that's
fault.
winter usually
Anyway,
comes after summer. Yeah. Anyway, okay.
Yeah, mind your business. Mind your business, because you guys have a beautiful fall. But that's not what this is about,
No.
Tim. We have got to hit on things that are near and dear to your heart, and I'm so excited. I'm going to say some teaser here, 3 letters. I know you love NFA, always a tasty dish.
Yes.
You've got Illinois. Oh, you know all about you some Illinois right there next to it, right?
Yeah, I can smell the stink all the way over here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Well, that's what we're going to talk
peeps.
about today.
Not
Tim.
you. It's your government.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry about that. It's not you guys.
It's the government.
It's the old corrupt people in one big city. It's windy. I can't say which one. Don't want to offend anybody. Yeah. Exactly.
Anyway.
Exactly. You got it. Well, so let's go into this, Tim, because the beautiful thing, it's something that we've hit on a lot on our channel, is we go into the more these gun controllers push, the more they uncover and basically shut doors for themselves. I mean, the principle is pretty much we've got to do something in virtue signal, and we're going to infringe upon our rights, but if we do it too far, then we're going to get smoked and we can't go far enough. There's a balancing act that gun controllers do, but this is based off of Illinois' assault weapons base. So let's dive into this, because one of the attorneys suing them actually came up with something interesting. So let's get into this. So, Mr. Producer, number 1, please, sir. Let's start this day off right. Attorney presses a vagueness challenge to Illinois gun and magazine ban. Now, the cool thing about this article, and one of my favorite things about doing what we do, Tim, is it's not even about the vagueness. It's about a secondary idea that they bring up with a previous court case, which could be precedent, to undermine the entire AR ban and mag ban ethos. That's one of my favorite things that we do, because they always uncover these skeletons that, honestly, we didn't even know about until we had to find them.
Yeah, well, when you have, tens of millions of laws on the books, sometimes it plays out to your advantage, right? you'll
I mean, in a roundabout, twisted kind of you made me work kind of way, yeah.
Yeah. Right? So it just, we have so much stuff going on and so many things being handed down from the powers above, and it's just accumulated over the years. They kind of lose track of court cases, laws, how they interact. And then when you go kicking that lion, sometimes the lion goes and finds something useful. And it would appear our lion came back with something useful this time.
It seems like there might be something here that undermines them even further. So, again, the article base here, the first avenue this lawyer is going after is something like a vagueness challenge on ARs and mag bans. I don't want to talk about that. That's just the setup. But what the fallback here is, this is interesting. Mr. Producer, could you throw number 3 up for us? If the vagueness argument doesn't lead to an injunction, Mag, who is the attorney, said he'll revive his Fifth Amendment argument that the law violates the right against self-incrimination. Again, this is AR bans and MAG bans. This particular, our Illinois registration requirement, suffers from the exact same defect identified in Haynes v. United States 50-something years ago, Mag said. And this is where it's interesting, because we're going after something that ties into the NFA. Let me finish out, and then we'll kind of break this down before we show you the whole case. Mag said the 1968 case found registration under the National Firearms Act did not protect registrants having such information used against them. The challenged Illinois law requires certain firearms and attachments owned before the law was enacted to be registered by Jan 1 with criminal penalties, of course. And that's the big piece here. Criminal penalties. NFA items, attachments, not attachments, that's the crux of the whole thing, isn't it, Tim?
It is. It is. It would appear that he's found something here rather interesting. Like you said, I don't know how many people have really considered this before. I certainly hadn't. And that's definitely an interesting take on it, but it seems to have some legs to it, right?
Right. No, exactly. That's exactly right, because it's so obscure. Again, this court case I'm about to show you is from 1968. And it's about an NFA case. I'm surprised that this has not been brought up, to your point. But if you look at what Illinois is doing, and I mean, to be fair, New York is doing it, California's doing it. They're all the left states, like the 10 main blue bastion states, they're all trying to do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
But they're all going to run into the exact same thing. And it's all about that crucial point, Tim, of, yeah, we're going to make a law, but no one's going to follow it unless there are applied penalties. And we can't give you a penalty unless there's a registration. That is the defect that this lawyer is talking about, because it's been unconstitutional the whole time.
Yep. And this Supreme Court might actually do something about that. We'll see. It's so hard to predict what these courts are going to do, because this seems like a no-brainer, right? This really seems like another one of those issues where the court should look at this and just apply the law and precedents and look at this and go, yeah, you know what? There seems to be a conflict here. This seems to be on pretty shaky ground. But we live in a politicized world, right? Where we have activist judges on both sides, right? But looking at this, there's a very constitutional argument being made here. This on the pro-gun side, this isn't embellishment or anything like that. On the anti-gun side, they just hit a brick wall potentially.
Potentially, but here's the thing that I love about this, Tim, and this is what I'm really excited, at least about the prospect of this is based on existing amendments, and it's based on previous court law. So let me show you the Fifth Amendment, of which you'd go into, and then I'll show you the case. Because this, again, tell me what other the new hotness from gun controllers this sounds like when we read the Fifth Amendment. So this is the Fifth Amendment right here. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment of indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. So, Tim, what stands out to you really loud right there in that middle part?
Yeah, that whole due process thing, right?
Weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's almost like that's written down somewhere. It's crazy. Yeah, it just seems like the anti-gunners, in their zeal to get anything passed, they don't care what rights they have to trample, what laws they have to break, what court decisions they have to go, counter to. They don't care. All they know is they want guns banned. They don't care how they do it. They don't care who they hurt. They don't care anything about that. They just have this drive to get inanimate objects off the street, and under the false belief that it's going to take violence away from people, that people are going to suddenly become passive and peaceful and just get along, kumbaya, hold hands. All we got to do is get rid of the guns, folks. Nobody's violent. It's the guns making them violent. The ignorance of their side of the argument is astounding. But again, to get to where they are, they have to go against so many protections from the Bill of Rights all the way to court decisions, and they just don't care. They just don't care. And they'll come up with an argument against this, and they'll say, well, you really don't need that pesky Fifth Amendment. I mean, come on, it was written by a bunch of guys in white powdered wigs, and they were slave owners. We just can't do anything with any of that. But that's what they're doing. That is their current narrative, right? If they don't like the fact that the Fifth Amendment exists, the Second Amendment exists, the First Amendment exists, then they just attack the people that wrote it. Then they go after, just like they always do. You're an ist of some sort. You're a racist. You're a misogynist. You're a somethingist. And it steers the conversation away from what you should be talking about into, well, we just got into virtue signaling, name calling, and that's where we are now.
Yep.
And so many people fall victim to that. It just
that's because it's based on emotion, and emotion is right there in that front part of your brain.
Yeah.
Right in your little brain folds, Tim. Right in those brain
those
folds.
Little squiggly things in your head.
But those little squigglies, yeah. But it's interesting if you back out a little bit, and we do this sometimes on Second Legacy. If you guys are new, if you zoom out and look at all of our liberties across the board, you can look in the last 2 to 3 years, 5 years. relatively recent history to where a specific party in the United States consistently ignores amendments across the board. For example, the First Amendment, well, you have protected free speech zones. You can't say that, it might offend somebody. Second Amendment, yeah, can't do that. Fifth Amendment, oh, yeah, I know you have due process, but this is for safety. This is for safety. So red flag laws, we're just going to take your property and take your rights. But don't worry, you can get them back once you prove you're innocent. If you are new to this, understand that this is not just guns. This is a way of approaching government to where the government provides every safety and every amendment and every constitutional safeguard that was put in place by those evil white-wigged people. That's just a product of their hatred to prevent safety. Do not fall for this, because what we're about to go into next is a proven court case from the Fifth Circuit from 50 years ago that proves the entire point right here, and more people need to know about it. Watch why we're covering it here. But one thing that I want to hit on one more time, and just to reiterate as we go into this, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself. Well, if you have a penalty for owning something and you are forced to register it, of which will lead to penalties, that'd be incriminating yourself, wouldn't it, Tim?
That would be, yes. That would be, which is such an interesting take on all of this. It really, really is. It would take a lawyer to come up with something like that.
Totally true.
Yes.
But it's totally true.
It's totally true.
That's what's so fascinating.
Yes.
Because everyone starts focusing on you can't infringe on the Second Amendment, you can't do this. Oh, yes, we can for gun safety.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, this guy is over here going, I mean, can we just look over here at the Fifth Amendment? Like it says right here, you can't incriminate yourself.
Yeah.
It's so good.
We have so many different angles to attack this thing from. The taxation part. Like,
come
over here and incriminate yourself and pay us $200 for the privilege. I mean, there's just so many things we can attack this from. And, it's kind of interesting to see all this happening now, because I've said for many years, decades, that I want to live long enough to see the NFA repealed, because it's such bad legislation. Even the people that passed it knew it was bad. They talked about it, but they're like, well, we could probably get this through. And we've talked about this before. The reason the NFA doesn't make sense, why you can have a handgun, which you can tuck into a pocket, but you can't have an SBR that's 5 times longer and 5 times heavier because it's too concealable. It doesn't make sense. Why? Because originally handguns were banned under the NFA too. You would have to pay a $200 tax, wait a year to get approval just to buy a handgun. Well, they knew that wouldn't fly. That wouldn't fly today, and it wouldn't fly back then especially. So they just peeled that part out and left the rest. That left a giant hole in the entire law. And so it has so many different angles to strike it down. All we have to do is apply ourselves. And that's what this attorney's doing, and I love it.
No, 100%. And I love the way that it's going. And so for me, let me get into the case here. Check this out. So we're going to go into Haynes versus United States. This is number 5. Petitioner was charged by information with violating part of the National Firearms Act, an interrelated statutory system for the taxation of certain classes of firearms used principally by persons engaged in unlawful activities, by knowingly possessing a defined firearm which had not been registered as required. So that was the entire point here, Tim. Now go to the conclusion here. This is number 6. Let's see. Here we go. We have plenary authority under this code to make such disposition of the case as may be just under the circumstances. It would be neither just nor appropriate to require the parties and the district court to commence an entirely needless additional proceeding. Accordingly, the judgment of the Court of Appeals is reversed. The entire point here, this guy was being charged for not registering an NFA item because it would be self-incrimination in a case that's on the books from 1968 in the Fifth Circuit around the NFA. It is not only precedent. It is not only in the Fifth Circuit. It is also related to firearms and the Fifth Amendment. This is a genius approach.
Yes. It will be really, really interesting to see how this one plays out. Because once again, it looks like this guy's onto something, and if we get it in front of justices at the Supreme Court that will understand this and respect it for what it is, they may just come down with a decision that could unravel the NFA, which would just be simply amazing.
Oh, NFA? Simply amazing? Yeah, that'd be great. You know what else would be great? The entire last 10 to 15 year push of AR bans and mag bans to just go poof.
Yep.
Guys, turns out you were building your castle on a lot of sand. And should have looked for rocks.
I know. And once again, the anti-gunners are doing this to themselves because of this constant push to get something done any way they can. it's pushing our side to find this stuff and to bring it to light, get it into a court, and to smack these people down once again. Because every angle they take, it's like they're, like you said, they're shutting the door in their own face, because they just won't stop with these crazy infringements, which just it's gutting their own arguments. And I don't know. It seems like there was a time decades ago where the anti-gunners were a little bit cautious, right? They were very careful in what they said. They were very careful in what they proposed. They wouldn't do outright bans. They say, well, you can keep everything. We're just going to ban the manufacture of new ones, okay? Yeah, don't get all rowdy over there. We're going to let you keep what you got. You're just going to have to give it to the government when you're gone. And so they've tried all these different angles that were very, very gentle, and they would kind of stick their finger up and see which way the wind was blowing before they would make these proposals. Some would be more restrictive than others, just kind of based on polling. And here we got where we're sitting today in 2023. They just don't seem to care anymore. They're just going to go running forward, full steam ahead. Damn the torpedoes. We don't care. And they're just taking incoming fire like crazy. It's like a mad rush and being shot down. And it's just
100%.
It's just insane. And they're not kidding this. They're not seeing this. They're not realizing the mistakes they're making. And again, I've said this before, when your enemy is doing this to themselves, just sit back, watch, eat popcorn, laugh, and applaud.
That's exactly right. I mean, like, legitimately, the thing that's so fascinating, and we have been saying this for years now, and it's very easy to get caught up in the response of, you can't infringe upon my rights, I'm pissed. Well, that's great. We can absolutely be pissed. That is a valid emotion. They are infringing upon the rights of ourselves and our next generations. However, we are making so much progress in such a short amount of time because they are pushing the ball too far forward. Mm-hmm. They have jumped the shark completely.
Yes.
And in my opinion, this is just a hypothetical. I think, no, not hypothetical. That's not the right word. Hypothesis. There we go. My hypothesis is the next generations that came up behind exactly who you're talking about, the Feinsteins and the very cautious, hey, we're not trying to infringe too hard. Maybe just try this. But you know what? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it.
The reasonable restriction crowd.
Exactly. The reasonable restrictions have been replaced by, I have the emotional and the moral authority and the high ground, the Davy Hoggs, the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. All of those people who are coming at us with all of the elitism and the education and just the goodness of the next generation. So fresh, so faced, Ben Shapiro. I think that I don't want to say dumber because that would be just rude, but I think the more emotionally based generation is coming along, the more they are stepping in it, and the older generation's like, I mean, we're whatever. Just I'm done. I can't.
I know. It does seem. One thing talking about the current generation. I was reading a report. I think it was this weekend or at the end of last week. It was saying that they've been doing some polling and stuff, and the Gen Zers aren't as far leaning to the left as it may seem. It seems that there's a pretty strong conservative movement in the upcoming generation. And that's something I've kind of predicted, because when you have a radical swing one way, inevitably it's going to swing back the other way. It never stays pinned to one side or the other, right? So, again, this is them forcing the hand of their opposition by going so radically left that it's going to cause people to switch radically right. The exact opposite of what they want to happen. And they don't see history. They ignore history, because history would tell them, you push too hard over here, this is the result you're going to get. It is, for lack of a better word, they're just dumb. They're so blinded by the fact that they just got to ban guns no matter what. We got to get it done before Biden's voted out. We got to get it. It's like they're on this crushed timeline. They just got to get to the end. They got to do everything they possibly can because they don't know what the next election cycle holds. And this is that emotional side of them. They're shooting themselves in the foot, and go for it. I'll hand you another magazine. Have at it. Get them both. Blast away at those feet, folks.
And it will be detachable, and it will be high capacity. It will be an LCM, large capacity magazine.
Extended standard capacity. Is that a thing? Yeah, we got to do that. Yeah.
No, of course. We got to say it right. Yeah, you know what? It's weird, Tim, because it turns out, because I've read those same reports you're talking about with the next generation, and a lot of that rightward-leaning conservative lurch is coming from young males. And it's so weird when an entire generation of males is force-fed the fact that they're evil because they are who they are, and they have toxic masculinity, and everything's their fault, and they hate women, and they hate everything, and they're just evil, and they should just go away.
Just a bunch of racist, it's misogynistic,
weird. It's
evil.
so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were born that way. And it's just so weird that when they walk away from that, it's almost like they don't want to keep getting punched in the face.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. But that's a different thing for a different show.
Yeah, right. Well, anyway, it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out. This one we're going to follow pretty closely because, again, this one seems to have some legs to it. This is a very unique argument. It seems to be a constitutionally based argument. So let's see where this one goes in the courts because it should be an interesting ride. And hopefully, at the end of all this, we, those of us that believe in freedom and the Second Amendment, emerge victorious yet again. Folks, if you'd like to be on the show, the best way to do that is to follow the link in the video description below. Click that link. We'll get you on the show. We'll have a great conversation around whatever 2A issue is on your mind. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you guys soon.